You are watching the video version of the Marketing Should Be Fun podcast. We are so glad that you are here. If you prefer to listen to podcasts, you can find the Marketing Should Be Fun show on any of your favorite podcast platforms, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else. But most of all, we're so glad you're here, and I hope that you enjoy today's conversation. Well, welcome back to another episode of Marketing Should Be Fun. My name's Austin Savage. I'm the founder of Savage Content Collective, and I'm here with my good friend, Kelsey Zarko, founder of Curate Social. Kelsey, welcome back to the show. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It seems weird to say welcome, but glad to be here with you.
I'm happy to be welcomed, and I feel very, very seen and wanted. Thank you.
You are very welcome. Kelsey, I have something that's very exciting to me and is not exciting at all, I promise.
Okay.
But I was just looking back through our lineup of episodes, the past 65 or whatever, and I noticed something. You have never repeated an outfit on the Marketing Should Be Fun podcast. And as I was looking through, I was like literally blown away.
I'm shocked by that because I feel like I wear the same three things.
But as I was looking at myself, I was like, there are so many like episodes that we have in a row that we recorded at separate times, but released like, 43 and 44 that I'm wearing like the exact same like sweater or something.
That's so funny.
But the reason I'm excited is because today you broke your streak. And I think you're wearing the same thing as last episode.
I for sure am. But I'm really mad now. I didn't know I've never repeated. I feel like I need to go change. Oh, broke the streak. Honestly, it's because this is the only like professional, nice looking, but I'm not sweating profusely in the middle of
100%.
August in Texas. So here we are.
Which is, it kind of looks like the sweater material. So that's kind of surprising that it like is, but it's
a tank top. It's,
oh my gosh.
The vibe.
That is amazing. I have a very on theme.
I'm so ready
for us. And I have to say, it's one that we've done here on the podcast before, but it's because we've done an episode about Taylor Swift on the podcast here before, and we're about to do it again. So we have to return to the question because there is new information now.
Okay.
Because the last time we talked about Taylor Swift was like 3 years ago or something, maybe 2 years ago. There's been an album that's released since then, all of the things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Not really a this or that, but a which one kind of question. What today would you say is your all-time, your go-to, if you could only listen to one, what is your favorite Taylor Swift album?
Oh, okay. I don't remember what I said last time. So this is...
I do.
Okay. Well, this is a complicated question, as is most information about Taylor Swift. I feel like my whole body is like buzzing with excitement that this whole episode is about Taylor Swift right now. The amount of times I compare marketing principles to Taylor Swift is a lot.
Yeah.
So we get to talk about it for a whole hour. It's gonna be great. No, it won't be an hour. Okay. Here's my actual answer.
This is the most chaotic energy you have ever brought to the podcast.
I know. It just gets me. Love. Yeah. It pulls down the polish a little bit. I still think I stand by. I really love the Red album. Is that maybe what I said? One of them.
I'm not going to tell you what you said.
But here's the song. I'm not a huge Poet Society. Like the whole album isn't my favorite, but I can do it with a broken heart. Like I will listen to that song on volume 7,000 and scream the lyrics. So if you were looking at just like average plays, that one's probably going to be up there just because of where it lives in the album world.
Okay. That is fair. That is fair. Honestly, there are just some of those like individual songs on Tortured Poet Society that is just, they're so freaking good. It is amazing.
So good.
You said 1989 last time because you had some connection to that.
Well, it's because I was born in 1989.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yes. I need to go look up too. Her newest, well, not her newest album because we all know that it's coming now, but Tortured Poets. And then what was the one right before that?
Tortured Poets. No, before that was Midnights.
Okay. So Tortured Poets has another song on it that I listen to all the time, but I can't think of it right now. I'm going to do some research while you think about your answer.
Yeah, this is very important. I stand by the same answer that I gave on our last episode as well, which was Folklore.
That's
even
right.
as Midnights has come out, the Tortured Poets Department, which I accidentally said Society earlier in the episode. Sorry.
I call it other things too. It's very hard when you also love the movie.
Yes.
What is that one called?
The Dead Poets Society.
Yes. I get them confused, but we all know what we're talking about.
That's the one that I go back to. Like if I'm ever like in the mood to listen to Taylor Swift, which this morning I was, and the immediate one that I want to listen to is Folklore, which I just learned through the episode that we're going to talk about today, that apparently there's like a whole fictional narrative that she's telling through Folklore of this like fictional love triangle.
Yep.
And I have listened through that album, I mean, a lot of times, and I have never picked up on.
Is that the high school narrative, or is that a different album? Some of this is, I'm getting my sister could set me straight if she was here. I've had a lot of educational conversations from her. There's one where it's like a high school love triangle and she's telling this whole story, but I think that's that might just be one song. I respect that. I think I told you last time when we talked about this, that one, I just like that one, and her other one that's a little bit more like not folksy, but like it has that look to it. Yeah. Those are ones I just don't gravitate to as much for some reason, even though I'm like in a very healthy, happy marriage with a safe home and 2 children. It's always the like emotional tortured songs where I'm like, hold on, I'm fine. I love you, babe, but I need to go sing about how my heart's broken for a while. I feel like there was even so many memes about that of like me in a very emotionally healthy relationship screaming to Taylor Swift in the car.
Yes. Yeah, cathartic. That is pretty funny. They just hit different sometimes, you know? And
Down Bad, that's another great one.
What album is that from?
Tortured Poets. That's the other one I couldn't think of. So Down Bad and I Can Do It With a Broken Heart. And then I also do love Bejeweled. So different album, different vibe, but we better wrap this up because I could talk about my favorite songs forever.
Seriously, though, like it is, and I was just looking through before the episode because I wanted to look through all of her albums because I was like, maybe I'm forgetting one. Like maybe there is something that I prefer more than Folklore, which nothing like screamed at me. But the amount of freaking music that she has put out is insane, like truly insane. And I mean, even just hearing the story also on this episode that we're going to talk about today, even just hearing the story of like how she recorded her upcoming album while she was doing the Eras tour is just crazy. I don't understand how she has the stamina, the vision to like be writing at the same time that she is like performing this insanely long show, and to like be thinking of what's next as she is like in the moment of what she's been doing. I mean, it's like truly inspirational, whether you like her music or not. Yeah. Truly inspirational.
Yeah. It's amazing. Very clear talent. Like you don't do something like that for that long without being really talented and really loving it. And so you get to see that beautiful part. I think for even people listening who have our, most of us are like business owners or we're growing a brand. It's like, when you find that spot where your passion and your talent just like intersect, and it's like not even work for you. I am sure there are parts of this that are work for her, but when you see that just natural energy coming from that.
Totally. I thought that was just inspiring in my own, business journey as well. I'm like, that's just cool to see, and I know that there are plenty of times that someone like that, like, still sits in the same like overwhelm that, we sit in our businesses, or gets to those places of like, I'm really facing this like barrier, this challenge, and I want to break through. But I just feel like there is like a lot of inspiration, I think, to just be kind of like taken from something like that of like, do I like my work in the same way that someone like this loves what they do? And just like that consistency that she has brought to her music is, I mean, fits right in with what we talk about here on the podcast all the time, of like, she is such a good example of somebody who has been crazy consistent for a really long period of time and has earned her position as the number one spot, if not pretty darn close to it, in just like the music industry today. And that's the principle that we talk about in whatever industry, is like, if you want to be that in your industry, staying consistent for a really long period of time is how you earn that number one spot in someone's mind. That's how like the HubSpots of the world have earned their places, like the marketing go-to. They've just been there for so long in the same way that, you know, someone like Taylor Swift has done that in the music industry. So there was a big episode that came out recently.
Yes, there was.
Taylor Swift, she went on the New Heights podcast. I don't know if it's called the New Heights podcast, but she went on New Heights with Travis and Jason Kelce. And I have not seen something like this happen in the podcast space in a long time. Like, it has been a long time since I've seen a guest announced on a podcast and there be like literal, like hundreds of articles written about the fact that this guest was about to be on a podcast before the episode had even aired. Like, there was no content released from this outside of clips that they shared on their social. And I, like, when you looked up, when is the Taylor Swift episode coming out on the New Heights podcast? Like, it was article after article after article that were like prepping for this announcement or this like episode release. It was insane.
Yeah. That's helpful to know from your perspective, because I don't, you know, you love the podcast world probably more than I do. And I'm always the girl talking about Instagram. So just to hear your perspective on like, what does this look like compared to other podcasts? I mean, I'm just excited because I feel like it just brought together all the parts of my life, of my job and my fact, the fact that I love Taylor Swift, but to see some of more of like the industry science behind it is super interesting.
Totally. And I don't know, like statistic wise, you know, like how it matches up against, you know, there's just so many podcasts to keep track of, and so many that are in that, like, you know, top 1,000, you know, kind of like range that are, you know, getting similar audience sizes,
traction,
depending on, you know, on the episode. And this was like just such an important thing from my perspective. It was insane. I watched it. I think I started watching it like 15 minutes after it released, and it took me a couple days to like get through the whole thing, because, you know, it's a 2-hour long episode and conversation. And I've literally never watched an episode of New Heights. So like, I don't know that much about the show outside of the clips that I, you know, see on Instagram. But as I was watching it the first time, it said 1.3 million people are watching this with you right now, because they premiered it on YouTube.
Yeah.
And truly, that statistic alone is just like mind-boggling. You know, just to even like think of a true example of how media has shifted, and just how content consumption has shifted away from, you know, your traditional model of, you know, television or, you know, something along those lines. Like, you literally had 1.3 million people waiting to watch this episode right when it released at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. Like, it was insane. And already now, I mean, it's been 2 days, maybe 3 days since it released. It's up past 13 million watches on YouTube alone, which that's nothing to consider the audio versions of that podcast, which I believe there is an audio version of the podcast as well.
Well, I started listening to the audio version because that is how I listen to all my podcasts. And then I was like, oh, no, I'm not getting the body language. And I even told Matt, I mean, this will make you cringe, but it's also really helpful to think about like what draws people in. I don't ever go to YouTube. Like, it's never my first spot. I don't just pull it up to watch things.
Interesting.
Like, I search, if I need to know how to do something, I search Instagram, I search Pinterest. So it's just like the behavior patterns of different consumers. But that got me to go on YouTube. Like, no questions asked. I figured out how to, you know, I was like, I know how to do this. And I'm like pulling it up in my car at Target pickup and just like watching them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Travis, so cute. Like the way he was like supporting her. And it's just a different, there could be so many things we could say about it, but it added a whole different layer to the conversation to even see the video versus the audio. Obviously, you've got people coming on, both of them, that are making the stats go crazy. And then just to see how it invited different people to try a different platform that they were not even thinking about before it was Taylor's version.
Yes. Yeah. Just, stop. That was
the podcast Taylor's version. And that she even said, like, this was her first podcast. I mean, which that to me too is also crazy. Like,
yeah. That was another like big takeaway. That was just interesting, because we've talked about just how smart she is as a marketer. And there is so many things that we can take away from the community that she has built, and from her consistency, and from the way she markets, and just like the thought she gives to every single message that she puts out. But at the same time, it was really interesting to hear her talk about how she like is not an online person. Like she really isn't online that much. And in that sense, I mean, she got into the game before the era that we're in right now. Did you see that? I used that word.
Oh, look at that. Look at us. Puns for days. I mean, it's true. This will age me, but I remember being in college, going out with my friends on Halloween, as college people do.
Yep.
And people dressing up like her because she was like this new, we all loved her. I mean, she's the same age as me, so that's wild too. But I mean, back to your talk about consistency. I mean, she really just has been there for so long, for all of my adult life, literally. Totally. It's kind of crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. And as a result of that, I think she just has a unique position of not having to do the same level of content marketing that so many, other businesses or individuals have to do. It was just interesting to kind of hear that, like from her perspective, why she has kind of set the boundaries around like technology and around like social media, especially.
Yeah.
And how she is kind of like compensated for that from a marketing perspective.
I would say too, though, she's got a whole team who's doing the things that need to be 100%. Done when they need to be done. And then it's a classic, not a classic study, an incredible study on just UGC. I mean, user generated content. I mean, her fans are the ones out there creating content for her all the time. So she's definitely marketing. It's just not her being the one that has to always sit and create the thing. But 100%. If you haven't picked up on it yet, we are doing a whole episode about marketing takeaways from this podcast. And we couldn't even explain that to you before we jumped in because we were having so much fun. But like you said, I think we've talked a lot on here about just the marketing genius that is her brand and her personality and just truly the essence of who she is. And anytime a piece of content like this drops, it's just hard not to kind of find those philosophies and principles and just kind of marvel at it and celebrate it. And it's really a great firsthand in our culture today example of things we talk about here in maybe ethereal ways all the time that just bring a little bit more weight and fun to the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So you and I, Kelsey, we were, after watching, most of this interview, we were talking just about like our takeaways. We've talked generally, of course, about like her brand and just like that conversation. But from that episode itself, like that really is like a pinnacle of like, if something like that, even at like 10% happened for like a normal brand, people would be ecstatic for like 10 years about that.
Be a milestone moment in their company's marketing.
Yes. There just is so much to look up to at a show like that and an episode like that. And so I know you and I were talking just about some of the takeaways that we had from engaging with that content and just like seeing this. And the first one, which I think is like maybe the most obvious from this, is that like podcasts are alive and well today. And I don't think there's a huge group of people who are like, oh, like nobody listens to podcasts, like it hasn't really gotten the like same reputation as like a blog or something.
Oh, there was another one. Reputation.
Oh, that one was on accident.
I'm going to call them out every time. Please don't edit them out.
There are, I think, a lot of people who avoid podcasts because they don't feel like there's an audience for them through a channel like that, or they feel like there's too many, or, something along those lines. And really, I mean, New Heights hasn't been around for that long. And they were not the first sports podcast to come into the space and, do half sports, half like just chatting about, whatever, chatting with like random guests. And so that really like they entered into a very competitive space. They had the benefit of reputation, of course, their career in, the NFL. But I thought that was just a significant example of the fact that like people will listen to podcasts, and also people will listen to 2-hour-long conversations on a podcast, because I still hear today, people are like, what, like, how long should my episodes be? And I'm like, that's for you to decide. Like, do you want to have short conversations? Do you want it to be, like bite size, 15 to 30 minute conversations? Or do you want to sit down and bring somebody into a raw 2-3 hour conversation? Because this is a perfect example of people who will sit down and watch that. And even if they're like you haven't finished the episode yet, Kelsey, but you will.
And I come back every day. That's what I was going to say. Like, and they'll keep coming back and they will prioritize finding time for it. I mean, exactly. So many messages that can come out of that, but continue.
Yeah. But I think that was just a significant example of the fact that if you are giving value, there is an audience for you. There is value in considering a podcast for your brand. And I think that takeaway of just the fact that people will make time for the content that's interesting to them. And even though we do talk about the attention span, decreasing, and that's like a big takeaway on social, I think an episode like this is an example of the fact that, people still are able to prioritize something that is exciting or interesting to them. And you can create content, even if it's at a smaller scale, you can create content that does the exact same thing that this episode did, but for your subset, for your audience.
I think part of the reason I keep watching too, and I'm willing to sit there for 2-3 hours, is that it's just so like gritty and raw and a little cringy at times. Like they're not trying to make it this perfect experience. They're trying to, back to what we say all the time, it's a piece of human connection. I'm like, truly. I literally feel like I'm sitting next to you in the room. I can feel the energy. There's like awkward pauses or times where I'm like, oh, that's some weird sibling stuff happening right now. But that happens in my life too. So I feel like I'm totally fine here. I just love that it was, and I even talked about this before we started recording, that like there's probably some stuff in there that we would have chosen to take out if we were, producing this for a client of ours, but that we just kind of love that they left it in. And I think we even see that shift happening just across all of content right now, where people are just open to a little bit less polished. It doesn't need to necessarily feel so professional or produced. We just kind of want to feel the like, hey, I just want to connect. I want to feel like I can be in here with you. This is connecting with me. I understand this. And you just see that in their literal entire conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree with that too. Like it was, and I don't say this from the fact that like the episode wasn't special, but like when you consider like the production, the questions that were asked by Jason, who is kind of like the main host of this conversation, and just kind of like the feel of the overall episode, like it really wasn't anything that special as far as like how it was structured, those kinds of things, like her answers, her responses, and the relationship that you saw on the screen was very special and was really like came through in a meaningful way. But even like what you're mentioning of the fact that like there were moments that were kind of like, oh, this like 10 seconds is like really awkward. Like we could have just like cut this and moved to the next question or something. Yeah. It's just such an example of like that works, like that works today. People are, able to look past those things. And that also is like part of the value of content today. Isn't just this perfectly boxed, thing that you're giving to somebody, but is just that beauty of being able to enter into that raw conversation, feel like you're sitting with them in their living room, having a conversation, hearing the inside jokes, all of those kinds of things, and having the space for that is value that people are looking for from content for any brand that they are connected to in most cases.
Yes. We have people ask all the time of, I want to be professional. I don't want to show that part of me or whatever. And that's always your prerogative as a business owner or growing a brand. But in this conversation, it's a clear example, like you were saying, of, I don't think we would have gotten, my favorite thing so far about the episode is seeing the dynamic between Jason and Taylor and just like, oh, this is like when I finally started liking, whoever my brother's dating, or, you like bond with that's a shared human experience. And we get to pick up on that. And we wouldn't have if it was like, let me ask you this scripted question and let's cut out all the banter and, feel a little more uptight. Like they're just being real, and we get to get so much more out of it because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Similarly, one of the takeaways that you wanted to highlight, Kelsey, was that you really saw Taylor, especially, but you really saw them like lead with vulnerability in this conversation as well. What stands out to you about that?
If you've listened or watched, you already know what I'm going to talk about.
You have cried your way through this episode.
With me. They were not hiding emotions. I think you could see it and you could hear it. it was actually the part where she started to cry when she was talking. I won't spoil everything, but she gets to talk about her journey of owning her music. Likely, if you care enough about this to care about spoilers, you've already listened to it. So we could just move on from that. But she starts to get choked up. And that's when I was like, I got to switch over to the video version and just like get the full feel of what's happening here. Even just the way like Travis would lean into her or like rub her back or just you see like the emotion.
Yeah.
And again, so many people are hesitant with their brand to show vulnerability, real feelings, maybe share things that are like, yeah, this is actually really, maybe I feel embarrassed about it, or maybe I feel like it's not, you know, showing the successful side of my business. That's what we all want to actually watch. I think all of us are just humans sitting over here being like, man, life is really hard and I'm falling down a lot and I'm getting back up and I'm struggling. Is anybody else out there doing the same thing, or is everybody just this like polished brand that I can only see your highlight reel? And we just watched that be really powerful on that episode. I even saw a creator I follow, and I will be honest, like she's kind of one I just like, I like to see what's happening, but I don't really engage. I don't tap into her story. She posted a reel about like, here's how I'm going backwards in my network marketing. And I was like, oh, I'm going to watch that. And I turned on the volume, you know, so there's something about when we share our struggles and our successes too, but our vulnerable things that feel like, hey, this is kind of a part of me that isn't easy to share. There's something powerful in that connects with other people and brings them deeper into trust with you. And you've seen Taylor do that her whole life. She is vulnerable with her audience. And that's why she has a team of 1.3 million people, more than that, who will be like, we ride at dawn anywhere you go, even a sports podcast.
Yes. So one of the things that I thought was really interesting about this conversation was that it kind of reversed that relationship in a way, because we know if we really, you know, considered like Taylor's audience, like, of course they would say that they're interested in hearing about how she got her masters, you know, back and how she purchased them. But like, that is something that Taylor Swift has shared that she is passionate about and has then informed her audience of like what they should care about because they care about her. And in a lot of ways, like you're talking about the vulnerability, like she was willing to share those things that she cares about, the challenges that she feels like she's facing, the goals that she has, you know, in her life. And those are things that her audience has attached onto because she was willing to share them. And I think that there is just an interesting element to that for any brand out there of when you're willing to share those places of, this is something I'm struggling with, this is something I really care about, and this is like a goal that I'm really trying to hit. Those are things that are inherently unique to your brand. They are inherently valuable because they are personal. And those are things then that give your audience a greater understanding of who you are and the things that they should be rooting for and watching for alongside your brand that they will only know about if you're taking the time and the space to invite them into those places.
So good. I mean, you see that from a grand scale of this 2-hour interview and this whole life story of Taylor and her music, all the way down to like, that's why people watch Instagram stories, because they don't just care about the post you're making about a specific topic. I mean, you could bleed this into those things too, but they just want the like, I have people who talk about something very different in their stories than what they actually are selling you at the end of the day. But it's all part of the same conversation of connecting and trust building and human connection.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I think another interesting part of the conversation and something that we kind of both saw as an opportunity here is, one, it's clear that there's an audience for everything as we are looking at this, which we can come back to in a second. But I think that this was a really good example of the power of collaboration and the power of partnership. You know, we really saw, like we highlighted earlier, I mean, these are two very different spaces in a lot of ways. Like you have, like we said, a sports podcast, then you have somebody who is a famous musician. And it's like, there isn't a very clear overlap of those spaces. Like, you know, obviously, like probably most people who watch sports somewhat listen, you know, they listen to music sometimes, but especially just like the type of artist that Taylor Swift is and the type of sport that football traditionally has been. It's like really interesting to see these worlds kind of like meld, not only with this episode, but just over the last couple of years. And I think that we see the success that happened as a result with how significant of an episode this has been. And I think there's a huge takeaway from that principle for all of us.
Definitely. You just at the grassroots of it, you can find a whole nother audience subset if you partner with someone who isn't like you, and to not be afraid of like, maybe these things don't really feel like they go together. That's okay. You're people, and people go together. And so it will work. I mean, classic case is that I have only ever turned on a New Heights episode when Taylor first started dating him, and they talked about it on the podcast and this time. So they only brought in people like me when they're partnering with some other topic. And so this concept can work for any brand or organization or, person listening. I think of clients of my own who have, maybe they're like a physical therapist and they collaborated with a local bookstore because she loves to read. And so she taught a class at this bookstore, and you're just melding together audiences and adding depth and dynamics to that connection. There's so many ways that you could take this, and it could be in a real life event that you do. It could just be as simple as collaborating on a post. And I know you had read a Gary Vee post about this too. And so I'd love to hear your takeaways on that.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that was the most significant takeaway from Gary Vee. It was interesting to even see him talking about it, but of course he's in the marketing space. So
even Gary Vee will talk about Taylor Swift.
Know.
Listen up, people.
His takeaway was the idea of these two worlds coming together, just how much opportunity there is for that. And the example that he gave specifically, so credit to him for this example, but he was like, imagine if you're like a mechanic or, something like that. You're operating on a local level, like you're trying to reach your local community. He's like, a lot of people would see some really cool stuff happen if they, partnered with like a local Thai restaurant or like a local restaurant or something. And there's so many fun things you could do on a content level of like this restaurant making a meal at the auto shop, and you're capturing it on video, you're sharing it with the community, you're sharing this conversation that kind of like comes as a result. And maybe there's like deals that you're able to offer like back and forth to like your customers, like respectively at each business. But even something like that operating on a local level, like there's so much opportunity for what you're saying, Kelsey, of people who are just being introduced to your brand and are getting to connect with you because maybe they have known the person who, owns this auto shop for forever. And now they're getting to see a conversation between that person and, this restaurant that they've never even heard of in their community. And so stuff like that is like the exact opposite level of scale that we're talking about. Like when we think about like how wide that will reach, but that has the opportunity to make a significant impact on your business. And so thinking just on the level that you're kind of on, and just like people who are in interesting spaces, even if they aren't in the same space as you, how can you incorporate those people and incorporate those industries into what you're doing to try to kind of capture that new audience and kind of like bridge the gap for people into discovering your brand?
Yeah. My guess is a thing that gets in the way of a lot of us doing this is a scarcity mindset, because we're afraid like, oh, what if, so many things you could fill in the gap. What if they like them better than me? Or what if it doesn't work? Or XYZ, you fill it in. I think this is a great example of seeing the power and just the literal numbers of audience that was added when you're willing to be like, we don't really go together. I mean, now there's some common ground with relationship, but a great example of people will come because they trust someone, and you almost get to borrow their trust for a little bit and then connect with them based on that, and then grow your own relationship with them. And so I think it can be a really powerful thing. And I think it's a great takeaway to think about even as you head into this fall, just where can you be connecting either locally in your actual town or where your business exists, or in the spaces, on the interwebs, however that looks for you, where you could find some collaboration too.
Yeah. I've seen that collaboration principle like play out a lot. 4 or 5 years ago, I started a local podcast for my community. It's called the People of Peoria podcast. And for like 2 years, we moved away and I gave it away to somebody else. But my wife and I are back hosting it now. And it's really interesting. It's pretty fun. It's like free date nights. But it's been really interesting because like I remember back when I first started it and was hosting conversations. And now as I'm just kind of like stepping back into that world, like starting to build back relationships and, in the space and, things like that. It's really interesting because I'm still kind of seeing the same thing play out, is like, there is some brand equity for the podcast because it's been around for a long time. And so for some people, they are discovering local businesses through the podcast. And that is like their entry point into like, oh, I've never heard of that restaurant before. I want to go try it. Or, oh, I didn't know about this nonprofit. Like, I should support it. Or that's great to know about. And then it's the reverse that consistently happens as well, of people who are following these local businesses, love the owners, love the culture, love, it holds a special place for them. And then they hear about the podcast and it's the exact inverse relationship. They're like, oh, I didn't know that this podcast exists. Like, that's really fun. I should go listen to some of these past episodes, that kind of stuff. And that's an example for a podcast and, is part of growing an audience. Anytime that people collaborate on podcasts, they're hoping that happens.
Yep.
But I think that principle extends to just your business as a whole, of thinking creatively in that same way is something that can open up doors, because you always can unlock opportunity when you have access to another audience like that. And especially when you are leading on that personal level and are thinking on that personal level and that relational level, that really is when you can see just some really cool things happen on the content side of your business as well.
Yep. Well said. I mean, it's always a good day when we get to bring Taylor into the podcast. So thank you.
I know this was pretty special for you, Kelsey.
It really was. It's, I'm not going to lie. It's back to school week. It's been a little bit of a hard week around here. And so just an hour to talk about Taylor Swift marketing principles, just exactly what my heart and soul needed. So
100%.
Truly though, I do think that no one can really argue that she has just a really successful way of going about building a brand, a community, marketing things, being creative and being herself at the same time, and that working for her. And so we hope that you found some inspiration. We hope that you go listen to the podcast episode because it's really fun.
You should.
You definitely should. And maybe put one of these takeaways into practice this fall and just be encouraged in being who you are and bringing your gifts to the world as you market things, and knowing that there is a audience and a message for you to share, just like Taylor. Maybe not just like Taylor, in the same vein as Taylor.
In the same way. Yeah. That is it for today. We will see you on the next episode right here on Marketing Should Be Fun.